Hey everybody, good morning. It is Wednesday, my dudes. Oh, this morning was rough. I am definitely sick. Lily had some kind of like sinus infection thing going on, and I definitely have it. I think I've had it for the past couple days, but this morning was especially tough. You guys should notice now there's a new camera angle setting. I've got a new little setup right here, just super temporary stuff. But we're figuring things out. It's fun. I'm having a good time. I'm going to be talking about something a little bit specific today because it's keeping me from relaxing. And it's job. It's my job. I don't currently have one right now, and it's driving me insane. And so I thought I'd take a look back on all the work that I've done in my life and hopefully get myself to realize why I am in the position I'm in right now. So, without further ado, this is the story of why I quit my job. Let's go ahead and start with just my work in general. So, as long as I've been alive, I've been doing house renovations. My family had me growing up fixing stuff, like since I was a little kid. I remember, one of my earliest memories was, bringing my dad tools, just the classic, just like the classic, oh, I need this and that, teaching me what things are, as a little, like 3, 5-year-old, I'm sure. Couldn't tell you the exact age, but I was always helping. I'm cleaning up the yard, stuff like that. He had me painting, just like whatever. So they would buy a real crappy house. They'd put a little bit of money into it, fix it up, and then sell it. It's just like the house flipper shows. What I would always say is that we were like those house flipper shows, except we actually did the work. So the example I always give is like, you'll see them go in, on HGTV. They'll be like, cabinets demolished. And then they turn off the camera, and then the crew of 50 people comes in and finishes it in a week. That's not what we did. We did everything ourselves. So I grew up, middle school, high school, installing toilets, putting down tile. I did just about everything. I put up sheetrock and put sheetrock mud up and sanded everything and painted everything. I put down laminate floors. I put on roofs. I did everything to do with the house, just about. Even electrical stuff. I can change out a plug, no problem. That's not something that really bothers me or is hard, It's not something that's really hard for me. And I'm fortunate for that. I'm very grateful that I grew up in that atmosphere of do-it-yourself mentality, because now I'm going to save a bunch of money on work whenever I have my own house. I don't have to call a plumber over or an electrician over to handle a small little outlet or something like that, So I got a lot out of that. Let's see what else. I had to write things down because I definitely forget what I'm talking about whenever I'm in front of a camera. It's intimidating, It's really intimidating. My first actual job, I was a barista. Yes, I made coffee for people. I worked for a family friend here in Mississippi, Southern Grounds Coffee. It's a little cafe. It was really fun. I did it for a few months. I ended up quitting because I was going to go do another job, but I'm going to continue talking about the coffee shop. I was working at that coffee shop whenever I met Lily. That's not how we met. I'll probably tell a different story with her here about that, but we were actually both working at coffee shops. She was working at a place called Delo's in Goshen, Mississippi. She'd been working there for years, and that's a family friend of hers. Very good coffee. All these places down here are pretty solid coffee. The place I worked for was more of a cafe, so they had like breakfast sandwiches and stuff that I'd make. They had a food truck that the owner would drive around, and she would go and book deals and stuff with people. It's really cool. I never got to work in the food truck, kind of wanted to. but whatever. So I was a barista for 3 months, I think. I was a barista for like 3 months. So I can make some coffee. I'm pretty okay at making coffee. Lily is incredible at making coffee. We had this little coffee maker. It was like an espresso machine, and it had a milk frother on it. Like, ridiculously cheap thing, but she can make some bomb-ass coffee with it. I miss it, but it got dirty and gross, and we just didn't use it all that much, so we chucked it. But then, yes, I met Lily. So Lily's work, before I met her, the summer before I met her, she worked at the Grand Canyon. And she was with this group called ACMP, which is a Christian ministry in the national parks. So she would pay this company to help her get a job somewhere. They would send her to a place, and then she and a group of other people that were sent there would make like a tiny little church at a national park. They would have like jobs within the park. So she worked at a fancy restaurant there called El Tavar, and she was a server. And then like once a day in the afternoons, they'd all get together and just kind of hang out. And it was kind of like an open group thing for anybody. They were there to like, it's like, hey, come hang out, come to our service. She told me it wasn't really like a church service. It was more of like a get together. It was a hangout. Sometimes they just play music, and sing songs for like 15, 30 minutes and then be done. Or sometimes they would just talk about stuff, There wasn't like a sermon specifically. I think on Sundays they might have, but couldn't remember. But the summer that we were together, that first summer in I think that was 2020, right? Yeah. So May of 2020, we both went to North Dakota, and that was my first national park experience, and I really had a good time. I loved it. I had a really good time there. I loved it. She was not in good standing there. This was like peak COVID. So we're working at this national park, and up there is like empty. There was nothing for like miles around that place. Wasn't as secluded as the Grand Canyon was, but it was still pretty secluded. I think the closest Walmart was like half an hour away. She had a terrible work schedule. They had her working she had to be there at like 7 in the morning. Or was it 6? No, she had to be there for 7. Okay. She had to be there for 7 in the morning. Simon, stop. So Lily had to be at her work at 7 in the morning. She got off at 11, went back to work at 3, and then wouldn't get off until 10 o'clock midnight. Just about every day. Yeah, so like 6 to 7 days a week, she would do that. And it made it worse because my work, actually I didn't tell you what she did. So she worked at another fancy restaurant. She was a busser and a hostess. And it was just, they had her overworked. They had everyone overworked. We have a lot of friends from North Dakota that we talk to still, and they were just blown away by how awful it was. She was still a part of ACMP at that time. She was going to be sent to Yosemite, but things ended up falling through with that, and then they sent her to North Dakota instead. She had told me that at the beginning of our relationship. She was like, hey, look, I'm going to do this summer thing again. Either you can come with me, or we're going to have to end things. So that was at the beginning of our relationship. Maybe we were a couple months in, and she told me that, and I was like, I don't know. I've never done anything like that before. It's interesting, but I don't know. So I said, look, I'll apply for one job there. If I get it, we can go. If not, then I'm going to stay here. And I got a job. I was a golf course groundskeeper up there at the Bully Pulpit. Let's see, I still have my name tag right here, and I have a golf ball from there, Bully Pulpit Golf Course, close to Theodore Roosevelt National Park. That was the national park we were at. So, went up there, did that until July, and then came back home. Lily and I had a really tough time up there. We lived together, and I would get off of work around 3. So as soon as I'm coming in, she's leaving for her next shift. So some days we wouldn't even catch each other, and it was awful. It sucked. So since I got off so early, I decided I'd try and pick up like an extra thing, you know? And I went to go work with her at the fancy restaurant because they were short-staffed. And I lasted there for 1 day and 10 minutes. That'll be another story. But I had a complication with one of the other workers there, and they moved me to the pizza place right across the street, and I had a great time there. So I would get off kind of around the same time as she did, which was nice, and we could walk home together. It was nice. So after North Dakota, Lily and I took the winter and just kind of relaxed. A really do nothing winter. I think I helped my family flip a house or 2. I really don't remember. We had so many houses now. It's insane. We don't own them. We pick them up and we sell them. But I'm pretty sure I worked on a house or 2 with them in that winter time. Then the next year, in 2021, Lily and I were whitewater raft guides in Hartford, Tennessee. We worked at a place called Smoky Mountain Outdoors Rafting Company, SMO, and that was one of the most fun jobs I've ever had in my life. It was tough. It was really hard, but I have so many fond memories of SMO. Lily, unfortunately, ended on a bad note there. Working with people is tough, especially in the whitewater industry, because women are looked down to, and that's just not cool. So the biggest thing we would tell all of our guests that were a little hesitant about having a female raft guide was that, this is funny, the women are actually better raft guides than the men. Now, the reason for that is guys can brute force things. Okay, so I've got a boat full of people on water that's consistently moving. We were doing class 3 and 4 rapids, mostly like 3s, and there were some like 3 pluses that sometimes would become 4s. Siving, go. And so the women would have to use their people more, which is what you're supposed to do in whitewater rafting. But the guys would kind of just get them to paddle whenever, and then they would brute force steer and like do heavier paddling if they needed to. I mean, I'm guilty of this too. I've had very few instances where I had to get my people to paddle and steer for me. But yeah, the women are usually better. She had a bad experience on her very last trip of our first year, and it just ruined it for her. She had a group from the Middle East or India. The people over there just have a different culture, you know? It's, you know, they don't think highly of women for whatever reason. It's just culture. And they got her stuck. They ripped her paddle out of her hands, and they told her she was a bad raft guide, which we have bad experiences with guests all the time. I mean, that's not something uncommon. But to that degree, and to the degree that they were stuck, was pretty horrifying. So she had her like team leader that was on the trip with her had to get her unstuck from her position. She was stuck in between 2 rocks right below a rapid, and the way that she was stuck took them forever to get her unstuck. and there was nothing she could have done about it because her people took her paddle, and that's just a no go. I mean, that's just bad people, you know. And so it's sad that that ruined her experience. I completely understand it. You know, it's a very novel experience being a whitewater raft guide, and there's definitely positives and there's negatives to it. But as a guy, I had a great time with it. I love talking to people. I like communicating with people. Not that Lily doesn't, but she just had a different experience there, and it's really sad. Simon, quit fucking around. But yeah, she had a different experience there, and I wish that she would have had a better experience, but hey, look, I just respect the women there more now. So, you go girls. Keep at it. After whitewater rafting, then I worked at Planet Fitness. Okay. Then I'll say everything about Planet Fitness. I'll go back and try and edit that. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to cut it out. Work chronologically. Okay. So, with Planet Fitness, pretty easy job. I had a friend of mine text me, and he was like, hey, do you want a job at Planet Fitness? I said, oh my gosh, yeah, sure. Because I was looking for a job for the winter anyways. And I had a Planet Fitness membership like a few years back. I think like right as soon as I dropped out of college, which is another story. Oh my gosh. For later. But working at Planet Fitness was so easy. So ridiculously easy. You took calls, you signed people up for memberships, you gave tours to people, you talked to people. That's my bread and butter. I mean, I love it. So hanging out at the front desk, you'd have people come up all the time, you know, chat with you for a little bit. You just check people in, make sure that their membership's up to date. You just kind of keep them informed, you know. It was a good time. I had a great time. I met a lot of cool people there, like Trevin and Barry and Trevin. You guys figure out which way you guys want it to go. I really don't care. I love you all the same. But yeah, so I met Barry and Trevin there. They were passing through on their first road trip, and they used Planet Fitnesses to shower and clean up during, you know, just whenever they needed to, which I respect that. That's nice. That's a good way to use Planet Fitness. The black cards, you can just go to any of them. So yeah, Planet Fitness was pretty chill. Got my name tag from there. Really cool. I've got a bunch of staff shirts from Planet Fitness too in my closet still, just in case. You never know. Then I quit in December, so I worked there for like 3 to 4 months, I think. And all that time, I was planning out the inside of my bus, because next year I was going to go be a whitewater raft guide again on my own. And Lily and I, in the beginning of 2022, we broke up for like 2 weeks. We both hated it. It sucked. So we got back together, and we are not the kind of people to break up and get back together. We've never done that with anybody else before. We had these conflicting thoughts and these differing opinions on a topic, and I was trying to become my own person at that time, and I was fighting to have some control over my life because living with my family didn't give that to me, and I didn't have the opportunity to move out. So I took control wherever I could, and I cut ties with her for like 2 weeks, and I realized I fucked up. So we got back together officially like a month later. But within 2 weeks, we were hanging out again, and we were talking again. So yeah, I'm really fortunate for that. But not in that 2 weeks, I think completely leading up to this next summer, she was going to be doing school stuff, and I was going to be doing nothing, and I wanted to go be a raft guide again because I really enjoyed it the first year. She didn't want to do that because, yeah, she was doing school stuff. But also, the year before kind of deterred her from doing that, which, unfortunate. Anyways, I went up there. I lived in my bus for 4 months, 5 months. I don't know how many months it was, but it felt like forever and it felt amazing. During that time, I had so much space to myself, and I really started getting that self-confidence that I needed, you know? I was depending on myself to do a lot of stuff. I wasn't depending on anybody else to clean my clothes, to cook me food, to, keep me entertained. It was all on me, and I did it. I'm still struggling with some of those things, but I definitely found myself a little more during that time. So I'm really glad that Lily and I stayed together during that whole summer, because she wasn't with me. I was 15 hours away from Mississippi. So it was tough. It was tough living like that. But hey, we make it happen. Things I have left from Tennessee. I have my paddle hung up in our living room, which is really cool. My last trip that I took, my paddle snapped, which was unfortunate, but I think that was kind of a time it was saying like, hey, it's time, you're done. So that was a really funny way, God telling me to be like, hey, I think you're done with this now. I think it's time to move on. I had also planned on helping my family move at that time, and their move-in date got bumped. So, or not move, their move-in, no, their move-out date from their house got bumped. So then I had to come back and help them pack up everything and move to Texas. So, in that time that I was in Tennessee, I was looking for a job here. And I had no clue what I was going to do, but I knew that I wanted to stay here with Lily. So I got a job at Ingalls Shipbuilding. I became a welder over there, and they paid me during the training that they had. I was getting paid pretty solid over there. At least that's what I thought at the time. But working at Ingalls was the confidence boost that I needed. And I learned so much over there because it was the worst job that I've ever had in my life. Now, I am not legally allowed to show any footage or pictures because I wasn't allowed to take any. Because we were under government contract. We were building ships for the Navy of the US, and man, that was one of the coolest places that I've ever worked. Yeah, it's just unique. Never in my life would I have thought I would be on top of basically what was an aircraft carrier. So I was Department 9 hull welder. I was a welder over there, and they had me tacking up just a bunch of whatevers. If they had something that needed to be welded inside the ship, I was there. I worked with mild steel, so I didn't do any aluminum, no stainless steel, basically just structural welding for me. And that is one of the it's one of the hardest jobs that I've ever done in my life. I had a 50-pound suitcase with a big old whip on it that I had my gun on. I then had hundreds of feet of cables attached to that box that I had to run up to the top of the ship or to the bottom of the ship to a big machine so that way I could weld. Now, this ship is just massive. It's not like cruise ship sized, but it was insane. I think it was 8 stories tall from like the ground, and it took me about 5 minutes to casually walk from one end to the other. The ship was huge. It was just insanely massive. This thing is probably worth over $1 billion. I could only imagine. It's $1 billion ship. So what they had me do there was pickup work. So I was filling in little scars in the walls from people grinding stuff, or I was welding together structural things. And I thought it was really fun at first until people started fucking with me. Over there, it is just everybody fighting for materials. Everybody is trying to get something. Or you didn't work at all. I worked my ass off for the first couple months I was there. I was trying my hardest. I was trying so hard to get all of the work done that I needed to, that I would come home and I would die. I was emotionally exhausted. I was physically exhausted. And Lily can attest to that. I was just a different person during that time. I was always upset because my boss always had me doing something crazy. It sucked. I would be in the middle of welding something and someone would come behind me and disconnect my lines, which is 1, unsafe, 2, fucked up, 3, fuck you. I mean, think about this. I'll have my suitcase where it needs to be. I'll be getting ready to weld. I've got all my gear on and I've got my surface prepped, everything, which takes you about 2 hours, give or take, if you're fast. So then I'm set up, ready to go to push, because I've got like a little gun that welds up and it doesn't start, or the weld looks weird. So you have to stop what you're doing. You have to trace your lines back to see if anybody took out a line from the middle of it, or somebody went and just took your shit, Yeah. So you got to go through the lines, 400, 300 feet of lines. You might have to climb up and down 4 or 5 flights of stairs just to see if someone either stole the machine that you're on or took a line out of your big fucking parade of lines trying to get to your area. It was ridiculous, because the first month I was there was just that all the time. So everybody over there was fighting for materials. They literally had their workers fighting amongst themselves to get the work done for the place. We didn't have enough stuff there for everybody to use. And whenever I would ask for stuff, I'd get fussed at for having my shit stolen, because that's my fault that my stuff was stolen. No, that's your fucking problem, And I get there was a list of things that they asked us to bring, they asked us to bring a wrench with us. They asked us to bring a light, just shit like that, basic shit. They never told us to bring locks, so I wasn't gonna bring locks. I was told on the job to buy a big pack of locks so that way I could lock my lines up so nobody else would take them. That's not my problem. That is Ingles' problem, because they don't supply enough stuff for everybody. So I fought for months, just I'm not going to buy anything. And I never bought locks. I just fought the whole time. So instead of taking 2 hours to set up my stuff, I'd take 3 to 4. And I would wrap my shit in the most convoluted way around everything. I would hide the connection points. It was ridiculous what I had to do just to keep my lines in place. And then you're done for the day. You have to pack up all the stuff on the very end of it. You have to take off all your hookups on your box. That takes another hour. So I legitimately get 3 hours of work. Just kidding. There's lunch too. So 2.5 hours of work generally gets done in a day. That was the most infuriating part of my job, because I wanted to go in there. I wanted to be that guy who got shit done, and the job wouldn't let me do that. So I was there for 8 months. About 4 months in, I got a change to a different foreman. And that guy was the most manipulating person ever. He would ask me like, "Oh, like, how you doing at home?" Blah 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 blah, and then I wouldn't get something done one day, and he would just go off, and I was like, I literally am trying everything that I can do. Like, I'm trying to get this shit done. I am not like an experienced welder. I came into the training center. They had me there for like a month, and then they put me out in the yard. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I I felt like I was doing better than most, but I wasn't to that quality level that I should have been at. So that's, again, not my fault. I can only do as much as they allow me to do. And so I'm going to work every day. You know, I'm working. Unlike some of the other people that I knew working there, you'd find beds. You would find beds made in that place. People would get their work card, they'd clock in, and then they'd go take a nap. And that's all they did all day. And people would be proud of that. They'd be like, yeah, I didn't do shit today, man. Look, I'm getting paid the same as you, if not more, and I didn't do a lick of work today. It's like, you're a sucker. Can you believe that? It's maddening. It's sad. People have no work ethic. But I understand it now. I understand it because they will work you into the ground. If you have a good work ethic and you work your butt off there, they're going to take more than your butt. They're going to take everything you have and they will leave you a sad and angry person at home. You do not need to be giving 100% all the time to your work. It's not smart, especially Ingalls, who will take more than just 100%. So I worked there for a while, got switched to a new foreman. He was awful. And then I got switched a couple months later to another foreman. And that guy was the most chill person ever. So in that span of time, in that last 2 months that I was working, I was doing an online class to become an insurance adjuster. And with that job, I found that through one of Lily's family members. They had gone and done some insurance adjusting before. It sounded really fun, sounded like something I'd be interested in. You work with people, you go out, you know, you look at stuff that needs to be fixed. Hey, I have experience in houses, you know, I have experience with cars. I know what's broken with stuff. I can do estimation. Like, that's not a big deal. So I took an online class. Here in Mississippi, it's like a 20 hours of prerequisites you have to take before you can take the actual insurance adjusting test. So I took it. I finished that class online. I then scheduled an appointment to take my actual insurance adjuster's test. And I had to go to the college around here and I had to take like a proctored test in a facility. And whenever that happened, I failed it. I got a 50 on it because I didn't know the test and like half of the stuff in there I wasn't taught through my training program, which sucked. I felt really disheartened about that. And then I quit my job because Lily and I went on this lovely road trip for like 2 weeks. I had planned it out, everything. In that 2 months with my last foreman, he was super chill. He'd be like, hey, look, get what you can done. If you get it done early, you don't have to do anything the rest of the day. And so that's what I'd do. I'd bust my ass. I would get my stuff done within like the first 4 hours. I'd eat lunch and then I would go somewhere that I had internet service and I'd take my online class while I was at work. So that ended up working really well for me, and I think God came through and made that happen for me. Then I took my class, I took the test, failed it, I quit my job, we went on this road trip, I came back, took it again, passed it. So now I have my insurance adjusting's license. I am applied to pilot catastrophe over in Mobile, and I'm looking to get into this online class that they have, and then hopefully after that they will hire me like full on and start giving me assignments to do. As of right now, they gave me a little like computer program to do, so I busted through that. They put me into a virtual class, that's what it's called. They put me into a virtual class that starts on the 14th, ends on the 22nd of this month. So now I'm just waiting. I don't have a job. I am technically unemployed right now. And it's just interesting. It's interesting being in this spot right now because I worked my ass off at Ingalls. To learn how to weld was the first thing I wanted to do, and then I wanted to be able to support myself and Lily, and I did that for a short time, but it took so much out of me, and I don't regret working at Ingalls. I don't at all. I personally think that God will give you more than you can handle. You hear that all the time. It's like, oh, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. No, He gives you more than you can handle to prove a point. Something I've struggled with for so long is my self-confidence. Because I always wanted to be that guy who could get things done for other people. And I wanted to be that person who didn't complain and who had a good work ethic. And I wanted to show other people that. But I ended up neglecting myself. And I neglected Lily. And it wasn't what I needed. It's not what I wanted. I didn't want that drainage. I didn't want everything that was happening to me at home. It damn near killed Lily and I's relationship, me working at Ingalls. It almost killed myself. That's a little harsh, but I was the most unhappy I've ever been in my life working at Ingalls, but I don't regret it. God put me there to learn a lesson that I wanted to learn. I wanted self-confidence. He put me in a place where my self-confidence was going to be tested to the limit. And finally, I know my limit. I know when to say no, and I can confidently say that is why I quit my job at Ingalls. Now to insurance adjusting, then to whatever else, then to my big road trip that I've got planned, and then to God knows what. But thank you guys for listening here. Let me know if you guys like stories like these. I would be more than happy to tell you a lot about shit that I've had go on. But I feel good right now. So hope you do too. Peace.